Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Marvin Fuentes, the founder of Fountain AI. We build AI driven lead converters and automated growth systems that help businesses scale. Today, I am joined by Jake DeBeau, and we're diving into their wins, the lessons, and what's next.
Yes, sir.
Jacob, for those that don't know you, how would you describe what you do?
So we are a property maintenance construction company operating out of Southeast Michigan. This is our fifth year in business, started in 2021. Started with a 2003 Chevy pickup truck, 1500, and scaled it up to where it's at today. And we're just approaching 3 million total. So
Very nice. What was probably the first biggest hurdle you overcame?
I would say, when we first started the company, so the company was started with me and my best friend, Frank Bearshai, and knowing when the right time to kind of pursue what we wanted to do, I would say that was the first big hurdle. You know, when we started, we were working at a CNC machine shop doing basically EDM and CNC machining. You know, it's a big risk, right? There's a lot of reward to it, but it's a big risk at the end of the day. So I think the first big hurdle was kind of trusting ourselves and what we had, kind of on our table and weighing out the options and then, kind of just saying, you know what, let's go for it. We're young. So I would say that was the first big hurdle. And then as the business kind of scaled and progressed, I think, the next big hurdles were trying to find the funding and capital that would get us into the door for machinery and, kind of how we operate now, which is not throwing bodies at problems and focusing on that kind of machine factor of it. And, hopefully one day robotics, right? So that was kind of the next thing because, again, starting from, absolutely nothing, with for all my lawn guys out there, 48-inch, Viking walk behind lawnmower, and then to where we're at now. I mean, it's night and day. It's night and day.
What are the three main services you offer?
Three main services.
Yeah.
So as of right now, 2025, the big block of the company is going to be pavers and concrete work. So the design and build aspect of the company is really kind of taken over most of the revenue streams that we're getting. We still do about 300 to 400,000 for the property maintenance, kind of like the lawn care stuff. And then, into like kind of spring cleanups and fall cleanups. But the design and build is definitely the heavy side of it, from concrete pavers and decks, and then still that property maintenance, kind of the bread and butter of the company.
What would you say is probably the biggest mistake that shaped how you do a lot of your work now?
We've made some mistakes, man. That's a crazy cry. I mean, I think the only way that you grow, the only way you scale, and in my opinion, or at least from my experience, like you got to make mistakes as quickly as possible, right? So, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is hiring the right people that can make or break your company 100%. Our company's still a very tight knit group of guys. So we only have 9 guys total. And so one bad attitude, one bad, kind of just bad apple in the Bix, it can start to screw things up. And we're blessed to have a ton of young guys that, I think the oldest guy in the company is me and Frank at 26. So everybody is super, super hungry. They all want something. They want to grow with the company. They don't want to get locked down into positions at a bigger firm or company. So hiring the right people. And the one thing that we didn't have when we started this company is, we were like, dude, we'll take anybody, right? Like we'll take anybody we can take. And, that sometimes that's the method to the madness, right? Like you have to just accept it for what it is. But hiring the right people and having more of like an HR division with a kind of onboarding process, that was a system that, 2 years ago, in 2023, that we started to go, hey, like, we should really spend time on that first, interaction, taking them out to dinner. What we started doing actually, and I got this from Dave Ramsey, is we took the new hires out to dinner, and if they had a wife or a girlfriend, we take them out to dinner and basically just align everything in their life and what we're expecting, what we're demanding, and making sure that those two are exactly the same, right? So that helped. But I would say hiring, dude. I would say hiring. I think that's like the key finding the best people you can, right? And then maxing out their pay.
I've actually heard that same thing from Dave Ramsey. What was the reason behind it? Was it about learning about their spouse mostly?
So that really comes from a book that I purchased from him. And,
Okay.
I don't subscribe to everything Dave Ramsey does, but like, dude, solid information coming from the YouTube channel, books, all that. So I think it's just because that's part of them, right? Like, I think they're with each other all the time. So, it's this fuse of them and the spouse. And working, dude, I mean, working outside, working construction, I mean, it's a lot of work. It's demanding, right? You can get paid a lot. You can do a lot with it. I think, and the timeline we're at right now, the opportunity is just endless with the construction, even the property maintenance, right? But I like it because you get to meet everybody that's involved. And it's not just this, guy that shows up. You get to learn him and understand him as a person, right? Other than work. And I've seen that works so much better, whether they have a girlfriend, a wife or not, right? Like just bringing everybody to the table that would have a play or there's something at stake, right? I mean, when you're hiring people, you're taking them on and you're responsible for them, right? So, and that's a huge thing. You can't just hire people and then, all right, we don't need you anymore. See ya, So, and I've seen companies like that. So
When you think about what you've built, what makes you feel the proudest?
I don't think I would have thought if I asked myself in 2021, I don't think I would have ever dreamed to be in the position that I'm in right now. It's a blessing, dude. And it's all glory to God. It's not me. I mean, my guys work endlessly. Everybody's putting a foot forward. So I would say the culture that we've built and being a company that this thing wasn't handed off. This isn't a family business. This isn't something that my parents or even my business partner's parents had started with or, experimented or tried. So we're learning every single day. And so going down this timeline of this kind of short-term success, in the last 5 years, if, you would have said, hey, we're closing on a property this year for our own warehouse, our own office, 5 acres in the back, to do that in 5 years, I would have said you're a joke, right? Like there's no way that we're getting to this point. And even, the equipment, the skid steer, the excavator that we purchased last year, to have 9 trucks now, I think we're at 12 trailers, probably 8 or 9 lawnmowers at this point. It's just a big blessing, And I think the one thing I didn't understand when I started this is, you wish for all these things, but it's a whole nother thing to have them. Right. And so, holy crap, we're doing a million, this, that, the other. I mean, are you ready for it? You know what I mean? Because I tell you what, if this was put on my plate 2 years ago, I wouldn't have been ready for it. And, so I think growing and scaling with the company over time and taking on what you can and not getting too, big eyes about the whole picture. I think, there's a time and place for it all. And I think most of the time you're going to scale when you're ready to scale, right? And when you can take on that next big project or, now we're doing projects into 6 figures and I think that would have crumbled me when we started, right? So
Yeah.
it's funny to see how it's all going, right?
With that being said, and seeing how far you've come in 5 years, what's the goal for the next 12 months?
So I would say for the next 12 months, I mean, right now we're definitely really starting to kind of get, I would say it's like our entrance into the industrial and the commercial work. So this year, 2025 was the first year that we started working with cities in our area and starting to do city work, mostly concrete, nothing with like utilities just yet, but I could see that being on the horizon. So definitely trying to keep that, kind of relationship with some of the local cities and working with them, trying to grow that division a little bit more because that is something that seems like it's very consistent and predictable work. But with that being said, that's kind of where my time spent in the company. So of course, that's the answer I'm going to give. But on the other side of the coin with my business partner, Frank, the goal is really to start to get that landscape, the lawn and property maintenance side of the company to, at least $1 million. Hopefully within the next 12 months we're looking at somewhere around maybe 2 million, maybe just a little bit below it. But right now, I mean, the goal is 5 to 10 million or bust. So I think everybody on the cruise are aiming for it.
Very nice. Can you elaborate to me a little bit about the landscaping side
Yeah.
on like that specific goal, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, so the landscaping, what's kind of comical is like when we started the company, that's what we did, right? So we were we were a lawn and landscape company. And I would say probably around 2022, 2023, there was still a lot of that demand from the COVID period. And, to be in the COVID period, it seemed like you could do anything, you could make any mistake, you could do anything and you would still make money, right? And so, 2023 came around and not that business slowed down because we were beating on every front. Revenue, we were beating on cost of goods sold, where we were lowering some of the expense or overhead we had. We were beating on earnings every quarter, but the market changed a little bit. And so what we'd seen was, you'd give a quote to a client, for backyard renovation, you'd give them a quote, and within a day or two, as long as you showed up, they were on, right? They're like, let's get it done. Because there was too much demand, not enough people doing it. In 2023, we started to see, that was the first year we started doing, really a lot of concrete work. And we started to see that it was starting to return to kind of what I would call like the normal market, just kind of not just give a bid out and land it. And that kind of started to tailor the company a little bit more, where it was property maintenance, very heavy property maintenance, not so much big paver, fountains in the backyard, right? They got a dinosaur up in the, like it started to become a little bit more tame. And I saw that at least the clients that we were servicing, it was, replacing their driveways, right? Doing things that were actually kind of necessary where they couldn't wait any longer. And it was a little bit of a step back from, I want to redo my backyard with the cave and the fountain and a swimming pool. So that, being flexible with that and offering different services, and not, the one thing, and we were talking about this a little bit, is, I come from the position of, I don't know everything and I don't try to act like I know everything. And I really just try to listen to what the market is saying. Right. And so when it comes to landscaping, it's a very cut and dry kind of surface, right? So we do anything from spring cleanups to fall cleanups, everything in between if clients need it, but still doing that kind of install, right? So doing the design and build for the install, planning, different, whether we're making beds or doing, new sod, that's still a part of the company, so it's a balance. Like predictable free cash flowing systems, I think that's the bare bones to, most successful companies. And that seems like it's the most consistent. But, with that being said, it's kind of like, it's funny. The concrete is the inverse of the lawn care division, right? So the lawns grow, you need to cut them. The concrete decays, you need to replace it. So I think there's similarity, they're very similar, but just kind of opposite sides of the spectrum, but still very reoccurring, right?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. How do you get these clients?
I mean, dude, it's funny because I've been asked like a lot. So I kind of partnered up with some of the local, some people would call them competition. I don't. I think there's so much work out there in this industry that when you can reach out to a company that's bigger than you, that's doing it, you would gain so much more knowledge, and you would take, all of your problems and almost just put them to the side because you look at what they're doing and it's like, whoa, like this would have took us 5 years to figure this out, right? So partnering up with bigger companies, doing some of the stuff that they don't want to do, that was a huge success to get us into the door and kind of like prove our name. Because again, we don't, when we started, man, we didn't have anything. I mean, if someone was like, oh, can you build me a paper patio? Yeah, we can, but there's nothing to show, there's nothing to show for it. So it's like, you kind of have to put your time in, right? Like you got to put your pride to the side and you got to help other people that are established. And when we started to do that and work with other companies in our area, we started to build a really good rapport on, hey, these are the guys to call, right? Like human beings are all the same way, right? They're going to take the path of least resistance. So if they're calling multiple different companies and they can't even get a phone call back, or it's too slow, or they're focused on other jobs that, they're doing, and, this is kind of on the side, they're going to eventually just call you. And when you deliver, and I think that's the biggest thing that people, like a huge misconception in business, like you have to deliver, man. Like I would take death than not to satisfy a client. And we've given full $20,000 refunds just because they're not satisfied, and that's only happened a few times, thank God. Right. But like, when you do that kind of stuff and you stand by your work and until the client is 100% satisfied, you're not done, that'll take you a long way. So when you say like, how are you getting this work? Dude, 90% of it is honestly word of mouth. We don't do, that's one thing that we could do a little bit better of is spending a little bit more money on ads, maybe doing more SEO and, kind of online presence. We still post a ton of stuff on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. That's kind of my bread and butter. But, our ad budget, put it this way, our ad budget compared to our revenue is maybe 0.25%. Maybe. I mean, we spend $3,000-$4,000 a year on ads. And so I think as the company grows, of course, that number is going to grow. I would like to see it maybe around like maybe 2%. I think 2-3% is probably completely healthy, but we just haven't had that problem. It's really just, I think the real problem is keeping up with demand, right? So
Okay.
we've been blessed, at least at this time and in this timeline of the company, it's really been word of mouth and people seeing it from there. We get a ton of people that will come over to a neighbor's house and go, holy shit, this is exactly what I'm looking for. Can we get their name or number? There's a ton of that. So
Very cool. Yeah. So you mentioned, one of your problems being keeping up with demand. What other problems are you facing currently?
yeah, I think I think that's it. I think keeping up with demand. I think right now it's definitely this thing where keeping up with the demand of work and hiring the right people to keep up with that demand. Because going back to what I said earlier, you can hire somebody, and that doesn't mean that it's going to work out, right? And so keeping up with good A1 players, right? That's kind of what I call it. Like, we don't want C's, we don't want B's. I mean, we'll give you opportunities to increase, but like we want A plus players at the end of the day. And that, when you do that, and like people are attracted to that, dude. Like me and my business partner Frank, we I mean, we've busted our stuff in, like, I mean, nonstop, relentless. And so people see that. And, I'm more of a lead by example kind of guy. I don't like the office side of it too much. I do enjoy it, but I kind of like that blend of office and in the field. And when you have that leading by example and not telling people what to do, but like they're seeing you do it and they're seeing, like, I've never told somebody, hey, go lay these pavers down, I'll see you later. You know what I mean? Because I'm the paver guy, right? So like when they can learn from guys that are actually leading the company, I think it says a lot more than somebody that's just kind of like, you know, and there's a time and place, right? Like when we're doing a lot more in revenue in a bigger company, I can't probably do that, right? I'm going to have 10,000 hats on. But I would say, yeah, keeping up with demand, keeping the right people in the company and maximizing their pay. I think that's super, super important every single year, whether it's bonuses or increasing pay. I mean, that's why we're here. That's why we're doing it. So that's definitely keeping up with demand. And I would say the financing behind the growth is another serious thing. I mean, in the broad term, with interest rates the way that they are, borrowing money is obviously a little bit harder than the previous years. We don't actually really leverage debt. So our balance sheet has less than 10% debt on it. So we don't really subscribe to the debt model. I do understand it. I get it. I'm not scared of it or anything, but we kind of take a little bit of a different approach. And I think that's from the core foundation of the company. But I can see that being, something on the horizon, is just with how expensive it is to borrow money, trying to keep up with the growth of the company, really in assets and machinery, whether it's buying new trucks or trailers or equipment that could kind of have some slow growth on it where we can't keep up with demand so much just because of that. Because, dude, it takes money to grow, right? Like, it takes a lot of money to grow.
Do you think you would probably have to leverage that if you were to get heavily into the commercial side of things?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's a timeline thing, man. I really do. I think if the work's coming in and you want to keep up with the work, I think that's what you have to do, right? So whether it's getting, small commercial loans or, reaching out or kind of, I guess, putting the business up for sale a little bit to a bigger company or, private equity. And I think that's, like if you ask me in the timeline of the company, in 10 years from now, dude, that's a real possibility, right? If I see that the numbers work where, we end up going and selling a part of the company or the whole company to a bigger firm that is looking to get in the game, I could see that being a possibility. I don't think right now where we're at, I don't think that's really where we want to take it, but I'm completely open to it because, it's all about timeline and opportunity, right? Like for example, if you got a big company in the area and, they were going to give it to their kids and, that's not happening anymore. And, there's a huge air void where they're leaving the scene and you got to make that jump if you want to go into it. You're going to need some money, right? And so raising capital and understanding those markets is definitely, a way to do it, right? So
Below surface level, like the obvious of like labor and your warehouse, what do you think is quietly costing you the most time or money?
quietly costing the most. Okay. I think efficiencies. I mean, like, what was crazy to me, and this is like kind of funny when I look back at it, what would take, when the company was me and my best friend, right? We're going out there. We don't have anything. I mean, like we got a 2003 Chevy 1500 and an 8.5x5 trailer, right? One lawnmower. And dude, we would 25, 30 lawns a day, dude. Just like going AWOL, and me and him, we're on something where like, dude, we don't even have to talk to each other. We're like telepathic. I'm in the backyard doing something, he's doing something. We don't even need to say anything. So when we hired new people, obviously that's not there, right? And so we're trying to get it there, but like that relationship, all that history behind it, it's not there. So it's entirely different. And realizing that they're going to do stuff and they can always improve, but like the guys that are under you that you're trying to lead and you're trying to give them clear orders, those guys aren't going to do the job that you can do, right? And so I think it comes down to efficiency. I think like that's the kind of like silent thing that's going on behind the scenes where it's like what me and my business partner, when we started cutting grass, when we would bang out 25, 30 lawns, you know what I mean? That's not realistic, right? Like they're going to maybe do 20, right? Or 18. That's just the first thing that comes to mind is efficiency. And it's across the board. I mean, if you looked at like, concrete finishing, building decks, pavers, it's the same thing, like the quality might be there, but it's just going to be a little bit slower, right? So
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Now, what's one bottleneck, if solved, do you think would unlock the most growth for your company?
I would say it, dude, it just happened right now. I mean, so when we started the company, we were running it basically out of a Macomb RV yard. That's what it was called. It was basically a RV and boat storage yard. So anybody that's like doing this right now, or that is in my position with maybe just crossed $1 million, your year 4 or 5 or whatever year you're in, and you're starting to get to this point where you're like, yo, we got something here, like it's working, right? They would all relate to this because the early stages of a company, man, you are scraping every penny, right? Like you are trying to save every penny you can. You're putting it all back into the business. Like it's almost idiotic to keep doing it. You just have to kind of like step back and go, nah, this is gonna work. Like we're gonna get it. It's okay. I could go get a corporate job and make 10 times more money, but this is what we're gonna do. So we were just scraping by. I mean, like at a little RV storage yard, parking all of our shit there. We don't have electric, we don't have water, we have nothing. It's gravel and that's it, right? Little fence around it, that's it. So we were running it out of there for 2 years, had a crazy, crazy opportunity. Shout out to Big Lakes Lawn Care in Macomb, Michigan. The owner, Chester, reached out to us and saw us online and got to have a meeting with him, got to talk to him. A1 dude, I mean, like just solid human being. I got so much respect for him, and I'm hopefully one day I can do what he did to me. I can give that opportunity back to somebody that's trying to start a company because, dude, he just took us under his wing. He had, I believe, 5, 6, 7 acres of property, and he was like, "Hey, if you want, you can rent out a little back area." So that's where we are now. Is
Nice.
we yeah, moved into another place. They had bins, they had salt domes, they had loaders. Completely changed the company overnight. I mean, like, not even a joke, completely changed the company. So that was kind of the big step, right? We were like, yo, we're in the door, right? We're something now. um, and this year, actually 2 weeks ago, we just signed a PA for a piece of property. It's got our own office, our own little warehouse, and then 5 acres in the back. And so if you said, what was the bottleneck? Property. I mean, like, straight up, because there's a point that we got to where, we needed electric, we needed water, we needed a building, we needed office space. We don't have a huge office. We only have 3 guys that kind of do the office administration stuff, but having a warehouse for the guys to have lockers and put all their stuff in and keep the work and home balance completely separate. Having a power washer for the equipment, sharpening blades, maintenance, like, dude, all of it, fuel tanks for the trucks, all of that was the big kind of hurdle that we were blessed with this year. So yeah,
Very, very
that's
cool.
100% what it is.
I can even imagine how you feel. I went from a little transition like that. I went out of storage units to a shared like warehousing space where a bunch of distributors were to finally getting our own. That was a great feeling.
Just like wait, and dude, like, we could have probably continued to do it the way that we were doing it, but it makes everything so much more complicated, man. I mean, because at the end of the day, it's not yours, right? So when you're trying to scale and you're trying to, make this work, other people are involved. And, I'm a guy of respect. So, everything that we did or we had to improve or do or keep it clean, it was all ran by other people that we were renting from. And again, it's not yours, right? You got to respect where you're at. So, but having this new facility and something that we can claim as ours and we can really start to operate as an actual company, I mean, dude, that's the biggest blessing ever.
Congrats.
Thank you, man. I mean, like, for your case, it was party tents, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So give me some scoop on what that looked like for you.
Yeah, well, it was very cool. Like I said, we went from storage units. We were taking advantage of this. So this storage place, right, had your first month $1, and then you pay the full price
Okay.
the second month. So we kept moving down the whole lane of the storage place.
See, now that's what you got to do, though.
Yeah, and we had to make ends meet during that time. But that
Oh my
money that we
God.
saved allowed us to get this warehouse. And yeah,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
transition was very cool because now you could really, really think about the efficiencies, where to put this stuff so you move quicker, the heavier stuff
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
front, lighter stuff in the back. Yeah, you have your own bathroom. That was great.
Dude, what's crazy? Exactly that, dude. Like,
Yeah.
we've been running this company, multi-million-dollar company. We've been running this without a bathroom. And like, this year was real with guys coming in, early morning in the work and they're parking all their cars there. I mean, dude, like, we were so ignorant to that. Like, where do you park these cars? The whole yard is our shit. And you got all these cars. Everybody's coming to work. They got to park their cars. We don't have a bathroom, right? Like, so those are the things that, again, it just makes the company more legit.
Yep.
You know, it actually starts to look and operate the way that it should, but it is what it is, man. I mean, like, when you start something from, you know, zero revenue. I mean, nothing was on the books. When you have that going, you have to make those sacrifices and you kind of have to wait for your time, right? Like, it's a timeline thing. You got to wait until you can actually do it or you can afford it. So, but I mean, it's funny because we share the same experience with party tents, dude. Like, that was something that we did at an early stage of the company where we said yes, right? Like, we had the opportunity, grew it to 15 party tents, and we still do that. It's just a very kind of low busy work kind of thing for us. But I mean, for your like the party tents that you did, was it like events? Was it like the structure party tents, or was it like high peaks,
It was high
frame
peaks.
tents, high
It,
peaks?
yeah,
Okay.
it was high peaks and mostly what we did. It was those, but that was only for like a certain season. Most of our stuff was chairs and tables. We had a large quantity. We probably had like
Okay.
3,000 chairs, about
Okay.
500 tables. So, you know,
Yeah, so dude, storing
yeah,
all this crap
yeah,
is mad, dude.
yeah.
Mad.
Yeah.
500 tables. I think we have like maybe 225. So I feel you, dude, because we have them all in shipping containers right now. So all we have two 40-foot shipping containers, and they're basically filled with tables and chairs. And we have a few bistro tables and stuff like that, like the high peaks.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean it's nuts. Absolutely nuts.
Yeah. You know, I was talking to you about the Tony Robbins event that I'm going to. We did one of his events, and it was 250 of those cocktail tables. Yeah. I was
That was fun.
3 truckloads. What was fun about it
Dude.
is just being efficient. Like, all right, okay, let's think about how we can do this in and out in about an hour.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. I think if you're operating a business and that's, and you're not doing that, I think that it'll kill you over the long run. Like that's where I'm blessed with my best friend, man. Like we're big backpackers. We love going out and just experiencing the wilderness. And like every trip that we would ever come back from, we're like, dude, what's a better sleep system? You know what I mean? We're like, what's a better, you know what I mean? We got all this. What can we eat better? Because we're eating crackers and cheese. Like, what can we eat better? So if you don't have that like mindset of like constant improvement, what you can do better, I mean, dude, it's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be a slower process to grow. Like I said, I think the one thing I always wish for is like if we're gonna make a mistake, can we do it quicker? Because the quicker we do it, the quicker we're gonna realize it, and the quicker we can fix it, right? Like that's just what it is.
Yeah, man. It's a very good skill to have. Just always think about that.
Yeah.
Now, let's say you have a little box that you could put in a corner for a season that could automatically do and handle any task you wanted to. What task would you give it?
It's a good question, dude. You got the questions, like the questions are top tier. That's a great one. I don't know, man. Like, I mean, it kind of is like what we were talking about a little bit with a AI software that could really take control of a lot of like just like the easy tasks that are just like time consuming, right? So and we get a little bit of it with QuickBooks and just the automated sending out invoices, the automatic billing, all that stuff, but it's kind of what I'm working on right now with that startup company. It's, trying to find a basically coding software that can take a bunch of input, package it all up, put it in a doc, and then there you go. There's your bid. There's your quote. And that goes and gets sent out to the client and takes that whole, hour time that it would take to actually give them a solid doc. And I'm not talking about, giving them a sheet of paper with a number. We talked about it a little bit. We give them 10-15 page doc, and it's got example work, it's got different options, different levels of whether you want maybe a paver patio with a border, right, or this kind of paver, or this brand of paver versus this one. What are the benefits of both? A big thing in pavers, especially up north, is what kind of base you're using. So we switched all over to clean stone. So we don't use sand, we don't use like older kind of, not, it's not traditional, but any like small fines we don't do. So a sand, masonry sand, slag sand, we basically got rid of all that. And so now we're just doing, 6A clean stone with a Ohio number 9 or 8 chip stone. And that way all of the drainage from the patio goes right down. It doesn't stick there because, I mean, in New Jersey, man, I mean, the freeze and thaw, the winter, it's brutal. I mean, it's like the number one thing that destroys backyard patios, concrete, you name it. So having something that you can give to a client, that gives them all of that information, I think that will go so much further than just giving them a piece of paper that says 20,000, like, hey, take it or leave it. You don't really know how we're going to build it, but we're going to build it for 20,000, right? So I think the more information that you can give somebody, the better. It's kind of how I do the sales of the company. I'm really the main sales guy of the company. And I guess my advice is don't even try to sell. I mean, it has nothing to do with selling. I think it has everything to do with educating and showing the client what they're getting, what to expect, going through every phase of the project and what is going to happen through every single phase, giving them all of your knowledge that you've got to kind of accumulate over time, giving it to them in a nice, easy format that they can understand, because they're not going to understand everything you're talking about, but giving them something that they can understand. It's pretty, it's neat, it's very straight to the point. You'll go so much further than trying to, be this kind of sales guy or something, right? So, at least from my experience.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. Besides the selling aspect of it, is it very time consuming for you? Is that why?
I guess it just depends on the project, but from and it wasn't always like this. When we were building, a patio in somebody's backyard, right? That timeline is completely different. When you're talking about like a driveway, a patio, or maybe some landscape plants or whatever, that timeline is completely different than working with the cities, right? And doing permitted work, right? Engineering plans to them. That is a completely different devil. So that whole process looks completely different. It's similar, but it's very different. And so anything that you can do to kind of shorten that timeline, make it a lot less like, human input, the better, right? And so that's something that I'd kind of seen last year and this year is going through engineering plans, plot maps, code and enforcement, especially on the city side. That's the stuff that takes a lot of time. I mean, going out and building this stuff is peanuts. I mean, peanuts. Like showing up to the job site, everything's there, everything's ready to go. The CRM's already updated with all the phases and plans for the construction of the project. Dude, that is nothing. It's all on the back end, right? It's everything before that first truck pulls up for demo. Everything before that, if you do it right, will make the job just go like butter, right? And so that's kind of where I'm at, and my kind of focus is making that process a lot more efficient, a lot more easy for somebody that if I gave them the task, right? Because you got to keep it simple, right? You got to keep it simple. Handing that ball off to somebody that hasn't seen what I've seen yet, if I can show them all my mistakes in a very short amount of time and they can just kind of get back like, boom, all right, perfect, we're here. Like I've learned everything you've seen, maybe not to the, fullest degree, but they kind of get it. Getting them in the door as fast as possible, showing them everything I've learned. That's kind of the winner of it, right? So how do you like speed run the last 5 years and give it to somebody to delegate, right? So
Now let's think about where you want to be in the next 2 to 3 years. What do you think is probably the biggest challenge between you and that goal?
I mean, hopefully in 3 to 5, I think we'll be kind of barking on the door of 5 mil. That's kind of where I'm forecasting it. Anywhere from like 3 to 4, that's kind of a guarantee. Five is kind of, what we're going for, but we're setting the bar high, right? But after getting that property, I think that unlocked the door for that to happen, right? Because we can have our own bulk material, right? We can start to process our own crushed concrete. We can start to have a salt dome for all of our clients in the snow. We can have an office that people can come into, or we can, have a HQ home center for people to call into. So most of that stuff is kind of already getting, put into place. But I would say the biggest thing, like I said, is keeping up with demand on the labor front and the financing. Because unfortunately, we don't really come from a company that's been compounded for the last 20 years. And, when we started this company, we had $0 in the bank account. And now we're at a completely different place with, months, if not years of expenses that are ready to go and get deployed. And doing that in a very conservative way, I think has led us to this point in time. And so keeping up with smart investments that make sense, utilizing maybe a little bit of financing to keep that growth alive, but attracting the right talent to keep this ship in the right direction. I would say that's it. Like making sure that we have the right guys that are just delivering on that best, secure, and quality service. And that's our core value, is offering our secure and quality service to all our clients. And those are the two things. I mean, like that is it. Very simple. So keeping up with that, keeping up with standards, right? And just making sure that everybody's on the same page, everybody's core values are on the same direction. We're all in this for each other, and we'll probably get there. So, but delivering on the product and service, man, like that's how you get there. You know, it's like ultimate customer obsession, like word of Jeff Bezos. Like focus on the customer, customer obsessed, team focused. Make sure those two are aligned. Let it rip.
Let it rip indeed.
Let it rip.
I got a last question for you. I don't want to take up too much of your time. If you could go back and give your younger entrepreneurial self advice, what would it be and why?
I mean, honestly, man, I would say it doesn't even have anything to do with business. I think enjoy the journey and enjoy what you're doing day in, day out, because the timeline's going, dude, and you're never going to be back to where it was. Like when I look back, I mean, dude, we're just so blessed. I mean, we were, working all day, shoveling shit in the back of a pickup truck. And then at 6 o'clock, getting to a dump yard and shoveling 3 yards of dirt out of the back of a pickup truck. I mean, we had no equipment. We had shovels, and I had my best friend. And that's the truth. And so focusing on what's real, that's what's real. Like the bonds and the relationships that you build during this whole timeline, dude, nobody could take that from you. Nobody. I mean, the company could stop tomorrow. I'd still have my best friend. We'd still probably try it again. And I think that's like the most important thing, at least what I've learned. So that's what I would tell myself is focus on what's real, focus on the people around you, treat people right. Right. I mean, that's all this other stuff comes and goes, dude. It's not real. But like the bonds, the relationships, the people that you get to serve, the people you work for, dude, I've met so many like just solid people doing what I do. I mean, that's got to be like the best thing ever about what I'm doing right now is like just meeting so many different clients from so many different backgrounds, getting to have a cool relationship, and then going back to their property. Like, a year or two, you run into them at the grocery store, dude, it's like they're your like best friends. You know what I mean? So that's what's real, in my opinion. So that's what I'll tell myself. Just keep going, don't quit. It's worth it. Percent.
Jacob, thank you so much for jumping on this, brother. I really appreciate it.
Dude, always looking forward to the next, and hopefully everything goes good, and we might have to talk more about AI. You know what I mean? I love what you're doing, so keeping it up. But that's going to be the next venture for sure.
Yeah, man.
Is kind of implementing that stuff. So
Very cool. Hey, how can people find you and find your business?
it's going to be MTE Services on Instagram, on YouTube, and on Facebook. And if you're in the Southeast Michigan area and you need concrete pavers or decks, we're the guys to call. And if you need property maintenance, we're the guys. So,
Very cool. Thank you, Jacob.
my man, thank you, dude.